it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome one and all to a Thursday midday edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here. Russ is finishing up his travel itinerary in St. Louis. And so, as I said, on Tuesday, we would have a guest co-host in for Thursday. And we have a great one. I'm going to introduce him right now. Of course, he's a stand-up comedian, a journalist and commentator, and host of the new show Unredacted Tonight, which you can look up on YouTube at Unredacted Tonight. You all know this guy, our friend, returning to the show for a second time, Lee Camp. Lee, thank you for joining. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. How many people had to say no before you got to me on the list? I'm guessing 22.
You were our first choice this time. You were our first choice this time. When we had you on as a guest, that was our way of grooming you to be a co-host.
Okay. I was
grooming is a theme of the show today, and so I figured we should have you on since we groomed you as our co-host when we had you on the first time.
I'm honored to be groomed.
Yeah, we groomed you, and then a year later, when you were legal, we're taking you in, right? We're pulling you into our orbit.
Pretty excited to be 21.
Yeah. Yeah, right, exactly. So, it's great to see you, man. How's your new show going? When you came on the first time, it was to promote it because you were just launching it. How's that going over there?
It's going well. People like it. Unredacted Tonight. It's still completely free to watch on YouTube. It's also joined Means TV. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's going great.
How's Means TV? Somebody, it's funny you mentioned Means TV because the last show we did, somebody super chatted us saying we should try and join Means TV. I didn't know they had you could apply to enroll there or something like that. Maybe it's invite only or something. I'm not sure.
Well, I reached out to them, but
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know everything about them. I've only been there a few months, but they are pretty awesome. They're the only, as far as I know, and I believe it's true, the only worker-owned anti-capitalist streaming platform in America. And they're, aggressively pro-worker, pro-Palestine and all that stuff. And they just have a lot of great content. So it's kind of like Netflix if you give a shit.
Yeah, there you go.
And you don't just want WWE Raw. But so, yeah, I'm on there and they have a bunch of, they Richard Wolff and Abby Martin and a bunch of people are on there as well. And then they have some exclusive stuff like Sam Sachs Means Morning News. So, yeah, pretty cool.
All right, cool. Yeah, maybe I will because it's funny because somebody just reached out to us and said, hey, you guys should get in touch with Means TV. So maybe we will. Maybe we'll think about that.
Yeah, and if people do want to join using coupon code Lee, we'll get them 20% off.
Oh, okay. So Means TV. Okay, so just put the website in the private chat somewhere over the course of the show, and I'll plug it so we can put it up on the screen so everybody knows where to go. Yeah, that's cool. I like that idea very much. All right, folks. Well, hey, smash that like button. Let's work the algorithm in the early show. We need all the likes we can get to juice that algo. 535 strong in the YouTube chat to start us off. 248 strong in the Rumble chat to start us off. Like I said, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and smash that follow button over on Rumble. All right, we are going to jump right in. So you may have seen this was pretty big news yesterday. But before we get into the actual play-by-play of the press conference itself, I do want to just set this up a little bit, because even before the survivors took the stage at the press conference, this had made pretty big news. So Republican Representative Thomas Massie takes first step to force a vote on releasing the Epstein files. Representative Thomas Massie, the conservative firebrand who's clashed with Donald Trump and other GOP leaders, filed a discharge petition Tuesday to force a floor vote compelling the Justice Department to release all the files from the Jeffrey Epstein case. Massie and his Democratic co-author, Representative Ro Khanna of California, said they will begin collecting signatures for their Epstein resolution starting Tuesday. They'll be filming their new pilot for the Odd Couple series the following day. That's I think they can. I think they have some good chemistry there.
Congress would be much better with a live studio audience, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, put a laugh track in and everything, sound effects. They need at least 218 signatures, half the members of the House, to force a vote. And Khanna told NBC News he is certain that all 212 Democrats will sign on, along with at least 6 Republicans. As of this live stream, I believe they have 4 that have signed on: Massie, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert. So I don't believe they are at 6 yet. That could change by the end of this broadcast, for all we know. If they can secure the requisite 218 signatures, there is still an additional waiting period of 7 legislative days before a vote can happen. Then the House Speaker has 2 legislative days before he must call up the measure for a vote on the floor. So the earliest the final vote could happen would be in 2 weeks. Speaker Mike Johnson and other GOP leaders are opposed to the push, arguing that it's not needed because the House Oversight Committee is investigating the matter and is in the process of reviewing a tranche of Epstein records. But the discharge petition allows a majority of the House to circumvent leadership's wishes. So in other words, if they get 218, they can force a vote. So let's hear Thomas Massie make his case when he took the stage at the press conference.
Colleagues are watching this press conference. I want them to think, what if this was your sister? What if this was your daughter? When these survivors speak, the Washington establishment is asking the American public to believe something that is not believable. They're asking you to believe that 2 individuals created hundreds of victims and they acted alone, and that the DOJ has no idea of who else might have been involved, that nobody else did anything that rose to a criminal enterprise. The American people know that's not true. Now, the Speaker of the House just offered a fig leaf to my colleagues. They're going to vote on a non-binding resolution today that does absolutely nothing. I appreciate the efforts of my colleague James Comer, who's leading the Oversight Committee. They may find some information, but they're allowing the DOJ to curate all of the information that the DOJ is giving them. If you've looked at the pages they've released so far, they're heavily redacted. Some pages are entirely redacted. And 97% of this is already in the public domain.
All right. So a White House official then commented on the discharge petition Tuesday night, saying that supporting it would be viewed as a hostile act. That's right. In an email to NBC News. So Thomas Massie tweets this out. White House says helping me secure a vote to release all the Epstein files is a hostile act. They're threatening anyone who helps bring true transparency and justice for the survivors. This is a tacit admission the Oversight Committee data release is woefully incomplete. Absolutely. Here he is being asked about this on the day of.
The kickback you're getting back from your colleagues. What are some reasons why they don't want to endorse this?
Okay. They're being threatened. I mean, look, I've got $2 million of ads running against me back in my district, and it's funded by 3 billionaires. One of them's in Epstein's black book. I mean, this is what happens. Your consultants, your political consultants will abandon you when the White House gets mad at you. The Speaker will block all of your bills. They'll shut down your fundraising. This isn't political, but it is. I mean, the opposition to this is very political.
Yes, indeed. And this was a great question by Status Quo's reporter John Farina, who Russ has run into in the streets of New York covering these protests and things like that from time to time. So he asks whether Trump could not only be covering for himself, but even if Trump is not covering for himself, which I find that very unlikely, but it's possible, in fact, likely that he's covering for people in his orbit, namely some big banks. So this was a great question, and I think this is a pretty ballsy answer from Massey.
So that's another reason you see some people are reluctant.
But you're not afraid of it?
Yeah.
So in 2023, JP Morgan Chase paid $75 million to settle claims that the bank enabled Epstein's sex trafficking crimes. Is it possible these documents that Republicans and Trump are trying to prevent from coming out have important information that the banks knew about Epstein's?
Absolutely. I mean, the first rule of any investigation is follow the money. So we got to follow the bank records. And that is one thing the Oversight Committee is doing that I applaud. Let's hope they get it out there. They can't just hold that information in their committee. Follow the money. Which accounts did it come from? Which accounts did it go to? And that's the quickest way to figure out who was doing what.
We banked Jeffrey Epstein, and I'm so sorry that we did it. I wish we hadn't. Had we known then, we know today, we obviously wouldn't have.
So sorry.
Yeah, you know, it was those peppermints we put in the little tray in the lobby. Alert me. I wish we hadn't put those there.
Yeah, no, the money is the obvious way to figure all of this out, because even if there's a client list that isn't as reliable because Epstein wrote everybody's number in his books and it doesn't necessarily mean anything, the money would tell the true tale. And Maxwell in her deposition or testimony said she couldn't. They're like, what about these millions of dollars in your bank account? She's like, I don't know where that came from. I don't know. Epstein didn't send me money. Like, it'd be so easy to unravel all this if they looked at the money.
Yeah, that's the thing. It doesn't seem like a particularly complicated case if you just follow the money. I mean, what was Epstein? He was a school teacher. I mean, how did this guy come into all of this money and wield all of this influence, right? I mean, these questions are just hidden in plain sight. But, you know, Donald Trump, of course, does not appreciate Thomas Massey being this kind of a thorn in his side. So Massey stands up for Epstein's victims, and Trump immediately goes live on the air to say he's an insurgent who should be taken out. So here he is on Scott Jennings' show.
A thing that's happening, and I do bring a unity to the Republican Party. Do you know, almost every single person I've endorsed has won. Yeah. I can't think of anyone who hasn't.
I've gotten almost every Republican to go from child sex trafficking is a global emergency to what's child sex trafficking. That's how much unity I bring to the Republican Party. I got almost every single one of them to change their mind about child sex trafficking rings in a couple of months. How do you like that?
I endorse a person, they win. And I do well in the elections, too. I don't want to put that down because with the Republican Party, it's like 399-0. Think of that. And many of those are insurgents, people that I like better. You know, I didn't like a certain Republican. And, you know, we like this guy Massey. He's going to be taken out. He's no good. He never votes. He never votes for anything, you know. It's like he's from Kentucky. He's always a no vote. It's like automatic. If it's good or bad, he thinks he gets publicity by voting now. We call him Rand Paul Jr. But it's terrible, some of these guys. So sometimes you have to take them out, and I do, and I win. You know,
yeah, good luck. Good luck. I don't know. I mean, we're going to do a segment. In our next segment, we'll take a look, I think, at some of these polls where you just see, like, overwhelming support for releasing the Epstein files. Oh, no, I have that right now, of course. It would make logical sense. Yeah. That's the polling on whether or not the Epstein files should be released. So self-described MAGA Republicans at 82%, an overwhelming majority. But ironically, that is the smallest batch of support that it has. Non-MAGA Republicans, 83, independents, 86, Democrats, 90. So it's funny, he mentioned that on Scott Jennings' show because Scott Jennings kind of became somewhat famous for coining the phrase 80-20 issue, you know, at least as it's modernly talked about how Democrats sometimes get on the wrong side of these 80-20 issues. Well, here you are, squarely on the wrong side of something that's more than an 80-20 issue. So I think Thomas Massie is going to be just fine. And it's just incredible that Trump is picking this kind of fight over this against a beloved figure within his own party, who obviously has not just a party, but the whole country on his side. Go ahead.
You'd have to have something big to cover up to want to pick this kind of fight, wouldn't you? to decide. One of the best "thou doth protest too much" moments was when the reporter tried to ask about it, and he's like, "You still talking about Epstein?" He like loses his shit. He's like, It's like, we got other things to deal with. Why are you even talking about it?
Why are you even talking about this?
Why are you even talking about it? But yeah, it's and I don't know if you covered already Ghislaine Maxwell's testimony that a few weeks ago, or whatever. But it's hilarious because it's like, and what about Trump? Yeah, I saw Trump a bit. He's just a perfect gentleman.
Yeah.
There were no clients. Oh, you're convicted of sex trafficking to no one. She just sex trafficked around in circles. There were no clients. She couldn't name anything. Had never heard of anything. Like, it's amazing.
It is amazing, and it is just incredible. The how stupid they must think their own base is, because I mean, to go from, I remember, if you remember a couple of years ago, remember that movie Sound of Freedom came out, about the guy, I forget the guy's name. I think that guy ended up being a weirdo himself, but based on a true story about this guy who saved all these kids from a child smuggling ring, and it became this big sort of sleeper hit in like conservative spaces, and they were all these very conspiratorial stories out about how the liberals were trying to crush this movie.
The Pizzagate and everything, right?
Well, this was after that. This was just a movie that came out. Mel Gibson produced it, about the real life story of a guy who, cracked a child trafficking ring. This was a big culture war moment on the right just 2 years ago. It was the Trump base that was making a lot more noise about this until a few months ago. And now it's just completely flipped. And the few principled people now are going out on a limb, and they're being branded hostile actors by the White House.
Yeah, hostile actors. He's a traitor because he wants to reveal who sex trafficked pedophiles.
Yeah.
It's... I don't know. And Trump is, it's kind of fascinating that all of Trump's tricks that normally work to cover up stories have not succeeded on this one topic. Like, he's gone to war in multiple countries. He's blowing up Venezuelan ships. He's got the troops wandering down the middle of DC streets. Everything he can, all those tricks that normally work for him. This is the one topic where he can't cover it up so far.
Yeah, the dog ain't wagging, as they say.
Yeah.
That dog will not wag. Mark Pugliese, thanks for the $5 super chat. Keith, Lee should do the headbang in the 666. He's got the hair for it. Yeah, we have a tradition where Russell headbangs to Iron Maiden when we get 666 likes. I don't do it because it gives me a headache. I'll play it. You can if you want. No pressure.
I'm gonna sprain my neck. I'm an old man.
I actually do get a headache when I do that. Like, I don't know. Like, I did it once in Russ's absence, and I got a headache for the rest of the show. Oh, George from Haifa says, "Hey, fellow Jews, tonight's show reminds me of an idea I have called That's Enough Jews for One Room. The show will consist of only MOT and MOT adjacent hosts and guests only. Only. Think of Mad TV's Men On." Well, thank you for that. We'll take that under advisement, oh George. Hillary Hinton says, "Hey, dirtbags, Carlin's quote should have been, 'It's a Saturn blood cult and you ain't in it.'" Yeah, exactly. That's a good one.
That's
for
funny.
Fucking real. Sorry about the dirtbags thing. Thanks, Hillary Hinton. What? Not Nick Fuentes. Yeah, no Nick Fuentes today. He was my first choice, and then I went to Lee second. Let's see. Professor Brown note says, "So Daryl Cooper said Michael Tracy's engagement farming inspired and decided to try it. When I asked him to finally marry me, the sheep just said, nah." Good one. Michael Tracy was at the press conference. He got escorted out. He did. And that's real. Yeah. Yeah. We have some audio of him being led out of the press conference by the Capitol Police.
"I thought this was America. Huh? Isn't this America? I'm sorry. I thought this was America."
It's exclusive audio that we've obtained.
Yeah.
He did post the real audio on his Twitter.
What was the offensive question?
He was asking something. I forget what it was. He was asking one of the survivors a question, I think, about Virginia Giuffre and Alan Dershowitz. That's like his thing. He's very focused on that. I didn't pay attention because I knew we weren't going to cover it. Because if I'm going to make fun of Michael Tracy and potentially start a Twitter war, then I have to have my co-host with me for that.
Thank you for that. Thank you for not dragging me into your wars.
Yeah. I have a fiduciary responsibility to involve my regular co-host in those and not drag other people in, and also make sure that I, go to battle with my full team behind me. So we won't be covering Tracy today. Maybe Sunday. It was funny. I mean, that was some funny footage. But all right, we are going to move right on along here. Okay, so let's get into the play-by-play of the survivor testimonies themselves. Epstein survivors implore Congress to act as push for disclosure builds. Survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's sexual abuse made their voices heard Wednesday on Capitol Hill, pressuring lawmakers to force the release of the sex trafficking investigation into the late finance year and pushing back on President Donald Trump's effort to dismiss the issue as a hoax. That's right. In a news conference on the Capitol lawn that drew hundreds of supporters and chants of "release the files," the women shared, some publicly for the first time, how they were lured into Epstein's abuse by his former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. They demanded that the Trump administration provide transparency and accountability for what they endured as teenagers. So here is the first video that we have. Epstein survivor claims Trump was Jeffrey Epstein's biggest brag during Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna's news conference. Let's take a look at this.
He surrounded himself, with the most powerful leaders of our country and the world. He abused not only me, but countless others, and everyone seemed to look away. The truth is, Epstein had a free pass. He bragged about his powerful friends, including our current president, Donald Trump. It was his biggest brag, actually. And while what I endured will haunt me forever, I live every day with PTSD. I live as a mother trying to raise my child while distrusting a world that has betrayed me. This kind of trauma never leaves you. It breaks families apart. It shapes the way we see everyone around us. But one thing is certain, unless we learn from this history, monsters like Epstein will rise again. There are files, government files, that hold the truth about Epstein, who he knew, who owed him, who protected him, and why he was allowed to operate for so long without consequence. Why was Maxwell the only one held accountable when so many others played a role? Why does the government hide this information from the public? This secrecy is not protection, it's complicity. And as long as the truth is buried, justice will remain out of reach. That is why this bill matters. Passing it will, bless you, ensure that the suffering of survivors is not in vain. Passing it will bring accountability, transparency, and prevention. It will help protect the next generation of predators who seek to place themselves above the law through wealth, influence, and connections.
So Donald Trump would then double down on his hoax claim as this was going on when asked about it, as we'll see in just a second. It was a striking stand as the push for disclosure of the so-called Epstein files reaches a pivotal moment in Washington. Lawmakers are battling over how Congress should delve into the Epstein saga, while the Republican president, after initially signaling support for transparency on the campaign trail, has been dismissing the matter as a, quote, Democrat hoax. So here he is. This is as the press conference was going on. He's asked about it in the White House.
Mr. President, right now there have been survivors of Jeffrey Epstein speaking at a press conference on Capitol Hill. They're calling for these case files, these documents to be released. And Thomas Massie, who is sponsoring a discharge position to get the House to vote on releasing those documents, says he doesn't believe you're implicated in these files, but many of your friends and donors may be, and he says that's why the Justice Department is redacting them and slow-walking the release. Is the Justice Department protecting any friends or donors, sir? So this is a Democrat hoax that never ends. You know, it reminds me a little of the Kennedy situation. We gave him everything over and over again, more and more and more, and nobody's ever satisfied. From what I understand, I could check, but from what I understand, thousands of pages of documents have been given. But it's really a Democrat hoax because they're trying to get people to talk about something that's totally irrelevant to the success that we've had as a nation since I've been president. Even if you look at D.C. right now, D.C.,
Winning.
It's a totally safe zone. It's called the...
All these things that I'm doing to distract people about the Epstein files, and no one wants to talk about those things. They all just want to talk about the Epstein files. All the great things I've done to get people to not pay attention to this hasn't worked. Hasn't worked.
And of course, the biggest thing is if you really wanted this to be over, you just release them. Like there's no.
That's it. That's literally it. Like all you have to do is release them, and it's over.
Safe zone. That's a term. It's a term of art. It's a safe zone because it's very safe. You can walk down the street now and nothing's going to happen. No crime, no murders, no nothing. Because we had a lot of problems with certain places, and we still do. All run by Democrats.
You should ask the Polish president while he has them there. Hey, how many Polish guys does it take to release the Epstein list?
Yeah,
that would be good. You should.
I lived in DC. I lived in DC for 8 years. I moved out 3 years ago, and never really saw any crime. Never. I was involved in a little, but I never saw it happen to me. Never heard of any murders happening near me. There was only one. I had a friend live in a neighborhood, and a guy was murdered in what was apparently a faulty robbery. It was his name was Seth Rich. That's the only murder I recall in DC.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. They were looking for a thumb drive in his wallet, and he didn't have it. So they whacked him.
It was a faulty robbery.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they needed that hard drive from him, and he didn't have it on him. So they had to cover it up and get out of there. So he, as this is going on, doubling down. You mentioned how earlier how a lot of the things that Trump has done to sort of deflect from this haven't worked. He is a guy. I feel like Trump. I always said, because there's a saying about Trump that he's not a politician, he's a businessman. And I always thought, no, it's actually kind of the opposite. He's actually not a very good businessman, but he is kind of accidentally a very skilled politician. And I think the one skill that he kind of brought with him to politics by accident is message discipline, because he's such a stubborn asshole, right? And so unyielding and so unapologetic that he has tremendous message discipline. And in this case, I think that message discipline is the one area where that's generally an asset in politics. But in this area, it might be a liability, because he simply cannot and will not come off of it's a Democrat hoax, no matter what. He's just going to keep repeating that over and over and over again, which normally, as a politician, that kind of stuff helps. It helps define you behind whatever priorities you want to communicate. But as we saw in the last piece, and I'll put this up again, I mean, this is a loser. This is a losing issue. So if you will not let go of the talking point that this is a Democrat hoax, you're only going to dig yourself deeper and deeper.
Ironically, he was one of the earliest people to bring it up. He brought it up in a debate against Hillary Clinton in 2015, 2016. And it might have been to try and stay ahead of it, because he knew that topic kind of implicated him. But he got the ball rolling, and now he wants to stop it. And I think the reason you're seeing the message discipline from him is because it's like, what else can you say? You're clearly trying to cover something up, or else you would reveal them all. So it's like he has to keep changing the subject. There's kind of no other option other than just creating a bunch of, shiny objects. Look over here. There's National Guard walking the streets.
Exactly. And this is why, not to bring up Michael Tracy again, but he seems to be one of the only journalists out there saying there's nothing to see here. And I get it. Whenever it comes to a story like this, where there's a lot more ice under the water horizon, most of the iceberg is underwater that you can't see it. There's a lot of speculation about what's under there, and we don't know what's under there, which is the core problem of this whole story, is that they won't release the information. So whenever you have a story that's probably 80% speculation and 20% substance, there's going to be wild speculation, and a lot of that speculation inevitably is going to be wrong. Yeah. So I understand that. However, to me, there is just no explaining how fucking guilty Donald Trump sounds whenever this comes up. He sounds like the guiltiest man on earth. This is simply not the behavior of someone with nothing to hide. It just isn't. You can't gaslight people into thinking that.
Yeah. But also think of the amount of information in various fields they have that have not been released to the public. You have you might, let's say there is no client list. Like they try and claim there's no client list. Let's say he didn't keep a client list. It was in his head. So there was not, but think about everything else. You've got everything that was taken from his mansions and all of his properties. We know there were cameras set up. So all of those videos, all of the data, all of his files, everything was, we know the FBI trucks showed up to like his New York mansion and filled up trucks and then left somewhere. Or did they just drive into the Hudson? Like, you've got all of that information. You've got the 1 minute, although it's actually 3 minutes, that was cut out of the prison video. Right. You've got the fact that of the 9 or 11 cameras, there were only 2 functioning and only one of them pointing that could have shown anything even close to Epstein's cell, and even that one has 3 minutes missing. Like, you've got loads of information in just a variety of fields and areas, and none of it is a giant black box. So
yeah. No, it is just like I said, it's a problem that will not go away. So here is Epstein abuse survivor Haley Robson on President Trump saying Epstein issue is a hoax. So you kind of had this like secondhand conversation going on in somewhat real time.
Said that this Epstein issue is a hoax, is the word that he used. Do we get your reactions to what you think when you hear him say that?
I'll answer that. Mr. President Donald J. Trump, I am a registered Republican, not that that matters because this is not political. However, I cordially invite you to the Capitol to meet me in person so you can understand this is not a hoax. We are real human beings. This is real trauma.
What does it feel like emotion?
It's being gutted from the inside out. Not that I would know what that feels like, but I imagine it's the anxiety buildup with the depression and the survival mode, and then your nervous system goes limp and ironically is shot, and it feels like you just want to explode inside because nobody, again, is understanding that this is a real situation. These women are real. We're here in person. To say that it's a hoax is just not... Please humanize us. I would like Donald J. Trump and every person in America and around the world to humanize us, to see us for who we are and to hear us for what we have to say. There is no hoax. The abuse was real. Now, what goes on behind closed doors, I can't speak for that. What happens around the world politically, I cannot speak for that. But I am here with all of these women, including our attorneys, and I would be more than happy to meet with him, and I will meet him halfway.
Well, that was one of the survivors. Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene directly rebuking Donald Trump's claim that this is a big hoax. This is pretty good.
Hoax. While these women were speaking out and they were saying we're not a hoax, we're human beings, and I think we need to see something turn around there. And I'll say this, Eric.
He can prove it's a hoax by releasing it. Let us decide if it's a hoax or not. I mean, I love everything they're doing. I'm MAGA through and through.
Well, I just want to finish up on one thing.
I love the whole, feeding immigrants to the alligators in the swamp out there. I love that. That's great. But, this is kind of sticking to my craw.
It is amazing seeing these people act like they care about humans.
Yeah, right.
They're like, these women deserve justice.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. All of a sudden, they're pro-woman, they're pro-family, they're, they're pro-child. Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is, of course, the irony hidden in plain sight. Within all of this. But, I think like on the Democrat side, I notice a sort of generational divide. I think like the people on the Democratic side who have been the most vocal about this have tended to be younger because, hey, a guy like John Ossoff, he's too young to be in the files. So he's like, well, fuck it. I'm not in there. Maybe Bill Clinton is, but that's not my problem. I think you're starting to see this, too, amongst the younger generation of Republicans. I mean, we see a pattern here. I mean, Massey is a Gen Xer, but Marjorie Taylor Greene is, too. But then you got Nancy Mace and Lauren Boebert. Those are the other two. I think, we may get to 6 to force a vote on this. They seemed confident that they would get to 6 Republicans a few weeks ago. Well, we covered that. Maybe it was it's probably more than that. It's probably over a month ago by this
question
point.
you might know the answer to. If there's a vote, does that mean that the files have to be released?
They can vote to, I mean, who knows whether they will actually do it. I mean, when it comes to, this executive branch, I don't know how much respect they have for the Congress. They're always within their, I would never put it past them to tell them to just go get their fucking shine box. But yeah, they can vote to compel them to release the files, at which point, who knows? Maybe it's a court battle. Is that executive privilege, or does the Congress have some authority over that? The first step is obviously to bring a vote to the floor. And, if they get the Republicans they need, you assume that would be the same vote in terms of like the same yes-no divide would exist to force the vote as would exist in the actual final vote. So as of now, they need 2 more. But it is kind of startling to see Marjorie Taylor Greene push back that directly. Like, no, Mr. President, this is not a hoax. Because Nancy Mace, as we're going to see in the next segment, lacked that kind of courage.
I could see Trump claiming it's his executive privilege to bang teenagers. I could see that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know it's not in the public interest to know about it. Yeah. But I mean, like Farina said, it's not, even if you don't believe Donald Trump has anything personal to hide, you see the subservience to Israel, right? I mean, you see how in the pocket of these other characters he could be covering for them. Even if you assume his hands are clean, which is a big assumption.
Yeah, and Ehud Barak is a major figure in these files. So,
exactly.
And there are a million other ties to Israel. Ghislaine Maxwell's father was clearly working with Israel, possibly Mossad. But anyway, was given a royal funeral in Israel when he died mysteriously off his yacht.
Yeah, he fell off the boat. Yeah.
Long connections to Israel.
Yeah, so that could be a big part of it too. Like, it doesn't just stop at Trump, obviously. I think the connections to Israel probably run even deeper than to Trump, and we know how committed he is to protecting them. So yeah, I mean, the idea that there's nothing to hide here, nothing to see here, is just so patently absurd. And it is kind of amazing how the Republican Party, which was more vocal about this than the Democrats for the longest time, are now almost in lockstep behind Trump, backing the blocking of these files. They're chipping away one by one.
Because like Trump said, if he endorses their opponents, they lose. And they've basically all been told, you will be out if you go against Trump on this.
Yeah. Yeah, they're really not doing much to dispel the notion that it's a cult. Right.
Yeah,
I mean, for the longest time, they would refuse that. And, I even gave MAGA credit for some of these things along the way, gave them the benefit of the doubt. But what's been revealed in this second term is just how cultish they actually are, just how much of a dear leader dynamic actually exists within that party.
Can you have a cult of puppets, or is that a mixed metaphor?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll go on to some more Rumble rants here. Professor Brown note. I got that one already. Let's see. Noah Goop says, breaking, Trump releases the full Epstein client list. Thomas, Massey, and Ro Khanna. That's it. Yeah, right, exactly. James O'Keefe just put up a video on his Twitter. Now, he's a real copyright bitch, so we can't play it, but it just came in. He got some DOJ guy to basically say that, they're going to redact all the Republican names out of the release. If there is a release, and it'll just be a list of every Democrat. I'm surprised they're not saying that.
Just 4 dark black lines, and then Bill Clinton, Bill Clinton, Bill Clinton.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Bill Clinton, Bill Nye, Rosie O'Donnell. Yeah, Alec Baldwin, right? They just come up with a list of enemies. I'm surprised they're not promising that. I'm surprised Marjorie Taylor Greene's not going up there saying, I promise to release the name of every liberal Democrat on this list, because that's now, and this is another way in which they've just dug themselves a hole they can't dig out of. At this point, anything but a full release is going to be suspect, because people are obviously going to ask, well, what did you not release and why?
Yeah. Like the missing minute. And actually,
right.
Kash Patel famously said, if we don't release 4 minutes, people are gonna say, what's in that 4 minutes? Then they release it with a minute missing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And then they lie about it. That was a story I don't have today, but apparently the story they told about why that minute was missing was complete bullshit. Bullshit. And did you see the 60 Minutes thing where they showed that even the map of the jail is not fully accounted for in the video angle? There was a route into and out of Epstein's cell that could have very easily evaded that camera's view.
Because the video we've been given is this. It's actually all you don't see Epstein's cell in it. You see half of the staircase that would go to Epstein's cell.
Exactly. Yes.
So someone could easily walk in, stay on the right side of the wall, and not actually be in the footage.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Trump in files, or is he protecting Israel? Maybe financial crimes. Well, yeah, we just speculated that ourselves on that last piece there. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Vito says, welcome to the Cool Kids Club. Lee, welcome to the Cool Kids Club. I have watched Redacted since the RT days. Cancer sucks. You guys rock. There you go. Old-time fan.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, Unredacted tonight is kind of my new version. It took me 3 years to decide I was just going to do it myself, but we're finally here.
There you go. Beautiful. Isa says, hey, guys, my dad is joining the flotilla from Tunisia. He's 70. We couldn't stop him. He was so determined to go. Wow, that's amazing.
Wow.
God bless him. God bless you. Wow.
Yeah,
Keep us informed of that.
That's
That's amazing.
The flotilla really is a crazy, incredible, and courageous, just because those people could easily be killed. I mean, Israel has already killed many of the people on prior flotillas.
Yes.
So.
Oh, yeah. No, it's incredibly brave. So shout out to your old man there. Thank you so much. Ovan the King, thanks for the $5, says, actually, most of the ice is in D.C., LOL. Perry Stein, thanks for the $5, says, Dems just want to get Trump, but the biggest issue is Israel and the compromising of American officials that help facilitate the genocide. Yep, I agree. We got into that a little bit in that last piece. There we go. Just had to adjust that mic setting there. All right, what do we got here? All right, this is a short one. Okay, so we just showed you Marjorie Taylor Greene in this last piece calling out Trump directly for claiming that this was a hoax, a big Democrat hoax, the Epstein hoax. Well, Nancy Mace, who did come around and actually vote for the resolution to force a vote on the Epstein files release, tweeted out on September 2nd, on Tuesday, sitting with the GOP Oversight Committee and Epstein victims at the U.S. Capitol. That was at 2:15. A little bit later, she was spotted leaving early, obviously visibly shaken up. Here she is coming out of the room. No comment, pretty clearly holding back some kind of emotion. Tears. Obviously, she recently testified to her own sexual abuse. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I was going to say, you like to see something like that a lawmaker could be proven to be human because they see the reality of what they're voting for or against. It's amazing we can't seem to get more of that on Gaza. You'd think you could take a few of these lawmakers into a room, show them what the fuck is happening in Gaza with Israel's genocide, and you'd think a few would come out with tears in their eyes and change their vote. But I don't know. They're inhuman.
It's a great point. It's a great point. I mean, so far, the only Republican to call it a genocide is Marjorie Taylor Greene. And even with her, we don't see the same kind of emotion that you see there. Yeah, you would think they could be sad. But the thing is, who is there to sit them down? Like, no one's there to even show them this footage, right?
They don't. Code Pink and Medea Benjamin are, but they won't sit with them.
Right. They can't get a meeting. They can't get a meeting. Exactly. So that video leaked. It went viral pretty instantly. And so here she is at 3:15, just an hour or so after the initial tweet to announce she was going in. Since it's already been reported, yes, I left the oversight briefing with Epstein victims early. As a recent survivor, not 2 years in, I had a very difficult time listening to their stories. Full-blown panic attack, sweating, hyperventilating, shaking. I can't breathe. I feel the immense pain of how hard all victims are fighting for themselves because we know absolutely no one will fight for us. God bless all survivors. Well, who is the main obstacle to releasing this list? Who is the main obstacle to getting these stories told?
Can I just say that was the same? Sorry, that was the same result. Same thing that happened to Trump after he found out he wasn't getting that Deutsche Bank loan.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Very similar. But the main obstacle to getting these stories told is, of course, Donald Trump. if Donald Trump said, let's release the files, every Republican would turn on a dime. We'd have a unanimous vote to release the files. If anything, all the Democrats would switch and say, no, don't release them. But the Republicans have the House, so they would have the W in that sense. So it is unequivocally Donald Trump who is obstructing the release of these files. Yet Nancy Mace, just a day after this, because this panel of 7 or 8 people here mentioned that they had not seen or heard Trump, do anything wrong vis-a-vis Epstein. She tweets out, President Trump is the one who banned Jeffrey Epstein from Mar-a-Lago. President Trump is the one who cooperated with the feds to get this guy. President Trump is the one who is committed to protecting women and kids. And then minutes later, now seems like a good time to discuss prosecuting who? Prince Andrew for any and all potential crimes on U.S. soil. Again, 2 minutes after that, a cold, dark cell. Prince Andrew in handcuffs sends the right message. So, I mean, you talk about hackery. To go from this to this in one day, as if the guy you're praising here is not the obstacle to having these stories told, which you were caught on camera crying the day before. You tweet out the importance of hearing survivors, and then you tweet this out the next day, and then you deflect. Now we're on to Prince. And
she's trying to have it both ways, where she can say, we need to hear from the victims, we need to get the truth, but Donald Trump's the hero. She doesn't want him to kick her out of office. So she's trying to have it both ways. I just love that, he's the one who kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago, meaning he was best friends with this guy for 15 years. But when he wasn't, he told him to stop showing up at his golf club. So that you can't get harsher than that.
Well, if you remember, what did Trump say? I couldn't find this clip because I forget the source of it. So I forgot where to look. But Russell covered it in one of his segments. Trump actually said on camera that the falling out with Jeffrey Epstein came when he started taking my people, meaning poaching my talent at Mar-a-Lago.
Because he met, or Ghislaine Maxwell did, one of them, met Virginia Giuffre at Mar-a-Lago.
Right.
And basically hired her away as she thought as a masseuse. And so when he started taking my women, that's when I had enough.
Exactly. That's when he had enough. When he started, you shouldn't do that. I told him, don't take my people. Don't take my people. I didn't like that. I didn't appreciate that. I mean, it's such gangsterism. It's such obvious gangsterism in broad daylight. And to go from one tweet to the next, I mean, that is just amazing. What did she say here? President Trump is the one who banned Jeffrey Epstein from Mar-a-Lago. You should get a Nobel Peace Prize for throwing Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. He should lobby for that. President Trump is the one who cooperated with the feds to get the guy, and Trump is the one who's committed to protecting women and kids. Well, how? He's the one calling it a hoax.
He was also just convicted of, was he convicted of the rape, or he's convicted of covering up the rape? Oh, defaming his rape victim is what he was convicted of, right?
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, he protects women. He does.
Yeah. Great protector of women and girls. Pretty amazing. So yeah, she's not obviously not the profiling courage there that Marjorie Taylor Greene is. This is something they're not going to be able to reconcile. They're just not going to be able to reconcile this. As long as Trump stays on the Democrat hoax line, eventually this is just going to reach a breaking point. I mean, this story clearly has legs. I mean, every video clip that I'm showing you was viral. I mean, there had to have been 30 viral videos yesterday just at the press conference alone, not to mention Trump's reaction, not to mention the preamble and Massey talking, and even some of the post-game stuff went viral because these people made the rounds on the media after. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And there's just no reconciling, Trump's involvement in this case with support for Trump and keeping that party together. It's just a disaster.
And I think it's the only topic that's really kind of ripped up MAGA. Like, they'll support him in all of the other lunacy that he's doing, every genocide, war, troops on American streets, black bagging people working at restaurants. I think most of quote unquote MAGA Nation is fine with all of that. But this issue seems to really flip it on its head.
Well, because this is really foundational to not just MAGA, but like modern conservatism, like the whole divide, like the big political and social divide in the minds of a lot of these, like, red-pilled MAGA conservatives, is that, there's a power struggle going on in the world right now between like the traditional old-fashioned, salt of the earth, God-fearing, family-oriented Americans, and the child trafficking lizard people, godless hedonists, and so that is so foundational to the philosophy of the new conservative movement, that this is just as damaging as anything could be. This would be like in 2016 if Trump came out in October of 2016 and said, you know what, on second thought, we're not going to build a wall. Never mind all that talk about the wall. Vote for me anyway.
I love immigrants.
Wouldn't have happened. Right? Yeah, exactly. Wouldn't have happened because the wall was a pillar of that campaign. This Epstein story, this whole divide between the lizard people and the God-fearing, down-home, salt-of-the-earth Americans, that is really that is the defining battle of our times, according to a lot of this movement. And they just cannot have this. It's just not possible.
Yeah. And it goes back a long way, even to the Pizzagate stuff. It was a belief that there are just pedophiles in the Democrats.
Right.
As if the ruling elite aren't, criminals in a myriad ways. But it was like Democrats are pedophiles. So Trump's going to ride into town on his white horse and get rid of all the pedophiles that are running things. And instead you have perhaps one of the biggest pedophile, ringleaders in the nation in this story. And Trump doesn't want you to know, like, the heart of what was going on.
Do you remember, like, in the early days, those were like the earlier days of AI where it wasn't as readily available, but you started seeing these AI portraits of like Donald Trump carrying children to safety, having just rescued them from a dungeon somewhere.
With a cape.
Yeah, right, exactly. Those were out there. Those were like 5 years ago or something like that. But yeah, those were out there everywhere, and we come from there to here. That's politics for you. Schuldal says Donald Trump is pathetic, but the Democrats are patheticer as they lost to him. Yeah, indeed. Xander Varkov, you cannot release the Epstein files or it will blow Trump's cover. In 2 more weeks, the deep state will be in complete shambles. There you go. Get up, King. FYI, Eric Weinstein gets very irritated when you pronounce the Steen in his name as Epstein and not as in Einstein. Oh, so Eric Weinstein, he likes to be called. So definitely don't encourage everyone to do that. I always, yeah, exactly. Stoop sign, I like this one. Says, what's the difference between a MAGA Republican and a Republican? About $100,000. Oh, there you go. Thanks, Stoop sign. Appreciate that. Eric Rousseau says, could we get Grindr to release their client list? Good one, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that. Perry Stein, or is it Perry Steen, says, Dems just want to get Trump. Oh, we got that one already. Sorry, Perry. Dorian Marquise, thanks for the $4.99, says Trump repeated IOF talking points about Gaza, defied Tulsi Gabbard, lied to Iran during negotiations, lied to Arabs in Michigan, all with a straight face. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to go on a limb here. I'm going to say Trump's a liar.
Yes.
I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for that, but
yeah. Yeah. Seems like a pretty massive liar to me. Okay, let me just load a couple more of these pieces in here because now I don't have Russ to do a segment while I do this. So I just got to
we got to get all your minions on it.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, and I got to upload these videos in myself because also, usually when Russ does the show with me, he preps half the stories, I prep half the stories, so I don't have to load in that many videos. But today, I got to do it.
Thank you for letting me be the lazy one.
All by myself. Yes. I said, you could show up, just got to make a few jokes, reinforce what I say. Don't disagree with me, whatever you do.
The email said, just bring your pretty stupid face.
Yeah, right. That's all you got to do. That's all we want. That's all we want. We don't, this podcast is a little short on pretty stupid faces. That is true. We don't have those in a bunch. It's not every day our audience gets the pleasure of looking at a pretty stupid face. So thanks for being here today. All right, we will move right on along. Okay, final Epstein piece of the day, and then we will get on to real stories. This is our final hoax story of the day. Final story of the day about the Epstein hoax. But These Epstein survivors are now, if they cannot compel Congress to vote to release the files, or if Congress votes to release the files, but the executive stalls for whatever reason, as leverage, they are threatening to release their own list. In other words, compile an unofficial list based on conversations and their own experiences and recollections and such. Epstein victims announced they will release their own list. We know the names. Many of us were abused by them. We will compile the names as we know we're regularly in the Epstein world, and it will be done by survivors and for survivors. No one else involved. Let's take a look.
Justice, release the files, end the secrecy, and stand with us in declaring that no one, no billionaires, no politicians, not world leaders, is above the law. And let me announce now, several of us Epstein survivors have been discussing creating our own list of names. We know the names. Many of us were abused by them. Now together as survivors, we will confidentially compile the names we all know were regularly in the Epstein world. And it will be done by survivors and for survivors. No one else is involved. Stay tuned for more details on that. Because history is watching, and so are the women who will come after us. Thank you.
So Axios has the report. Epstein survivors float release of unofficial client list. Jeffrey Epstein survivor Lisa Phillips suggested Wednesday that victims of the convicted sex offender are contemplating publishing a list of people involved in their abuse if the Justice Department doesn't make more documents public. The Trump administration has faced tremendous public backlash for concluding that there is no official Epstein client list. And if victims release their own list of names, it could trigger another fight between MAGA loyalists and federal officials. Several of Epstein's survivors have been discussing creating our own list of names, Phillips told reporters at a Capitol Hill press conference. We know the names. Many of us were abused by them. A potential list drafted by the survivors would be the first such compilation identifying the enablers who helped Epstein exploit women, per attorney Brad Edwards, who represents multiple victims. In response to a reporter asking if the victims believed the DOJ had internal evidence of Epstein curating names to blackmail, Edwards said, "There's not a list. I don't think he wrote the names of those people down," Edwards said, as the survivors of Epstein's abuse nodded their heads in agreement. You know, back when I lived in Brooklyn, there was a local establishment where the guy actually did get busted with a literal Rolodex of his mob contacts, along with like their nicknames and everything.
Yeah.
So it's not that that never happens. But yeah, I don't think anybody thinks there is like an Excel spreadsheet, you know, of names.
Right. It'd be unlikely for him to keep a list that just says like, I sent so-and-so a 14-year-old today. Like,
right. Exactly. The list is the amalgam of information and the names that come out of that. That's what the list is. And yes, they are capable of compiling it. Of course, that comes with, should go without saying, safety risks and obviously risks of lawsuits. And so here's Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna going on CNN after the press conference, and Thomas Massey explaining why it should not fall to the survivors to create their own list here.
Said that they had decided to compile their own list, but the reality is if they try to release that list, they're going to be sued into homelessness. They will be attacked. They will have death threats. And so what my colleague Marjorie Taylor Greene volunteered to do, and I've volunteered to do as well, is to read that list on the floor of the House of Representatives, because our founders put into the Constitution speech or debate immunity, which says that we can't be prosecuted for what we say on the floor of the House. So we're willing to help those survivors get those names out there. And as my colleague Ro Khanna has said, we trust the public to determine who were donors to the Epstein Scholarship Fund and who were users of
the women who were exposed to sexual abuse, to differentiate between those two groups of people.
And we will actually see Marjorie Taylor Greene offer to read those names in just a moment. But first, Ro Khanna gives his response as well.
Needs to come to that. I mean, there shouldn't be burdened to have to come up with the list. You know, one of the things that struck me is some of the survivors said that they themselves had not seen the files. One person pleaded with America saying she wants to try to understand her own memories and she wants to see these files to be able to piece that together. Look, this was such an emotional moment that after I spoke, after the survivors, Marjorie Taylor Greene came over and gave me a hug. I mean, people should have seen the humanity there. And I don't know, after hearing those women, why we just don't release the files. I mean, it actually would make the president look good. He could come out and say, no other president has released the files. I'm releasing the files. My focus right now, and I think anyone who was at that press conference, is how do we get justice and closure for those survivors?
Yes, those are good points there as well. Here is Marjorie Taylor Greene. Sorry, what did I do with that? There it is. Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene at the press conference offering to read the list on the House floor.
I'm not afraid to name names. And so if they want to give me a list, I will walk in that Capitol on the House floor and I'll say every damn name that abused these women. I can do that for them. And I'd be proud to do it. Now, another thing, this is not about politics. And this is a boiling point in American history where the American people, just like Ro just said, there's become two Americas. There's the America for the rich and the powerful and the elite, where they never face any struggles or problems and never experience what real America goes through. And then
there's the rest of us who get our asses pounded in by the Jews. Is that what she said? Let's see. That's my guess. That's my guess. Let's see if that's what she said.
There's forgotten America that faces all the problems.
She's in forgotten America.
And deals with all the issues. Forgotten America that faces all the problems and deals with all the issues and never gets justice for being sexually assaulted and raped by a monster. It shouldn't exist anymore, and people are sick of it. So let's recognize the fact that the administration before and the one before it and the one before it and the one before it and before it never did anything about this. So this isn't one political party or the other. It's a culmination of everyone worked together to silence these women and protect Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah. What do you think is up with Marjorie Taylor Greene? Because she seems to be going out on a limb with not only this, but the Israel stuff as well. She was the first Republican to call it a genocide. She made clear that she meant that. That wasn't just a slip of the tongue. She's called it that multiple times. And now this seems to, just not only be going hard on this issue, but going directly at Trump. Is she just betting that, hey, you know what? When the dust settles and Trump, is a thing of the past, there's going to be a future of the conservative movement that I want to be a part of. It seems like in the long run, she's playing her cards a lot better than everybody else in that party. Her and Massey. I would argue Massey as well.
Yeah, I think she's probably playing a long game that eventually Trump will be gone and she'll have a shot at the presidency or something like that. But to me, the crowning point of like whatever the hell she is, I mean, I'm sure I disagree with her on 90% of issues and then agree with her on a tiny number. Whatever she's doing, I think again points to the fact that these parties don't fucking mean anything. They're like, what's the anti-war party? Which one's that? What's the CIA, FBI party? Which one's that? What's the anti-prison industrial complex party or the anti-big pharma party? Like there is, even if you can point to individuals that, this one did something against prisons. They don't mean anything anymore. And yet Americans are told to pretend these are night and day. These are either you're on team blue or team red. And it's all fucking theater.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I think, she is positioning herself to play some sort of a long game. In terms of the list, in terms of the possibility of these survivors creating a list, some people talked about, and I'd like to get your take on this because I don't really know how I feel about this. Some people said, well, you should have just had a list ready to go, ready to drop. Now you put yourself in danger by saying you're compiling a list. Then again, maybe by announcing it in public, they're less likely to come after you. Although that doesn't seem to have stopped them in the past. You would obviously, face just tremendous blowback if they put out an unofficial list. But what happens if they just start naming names, right? I mean, at that point, what do you think the next step would be?
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting because, I don't know how many there are, but there's enough of them and they're spread out over enough ground that I think the odds of one by one they're being picked off seems rather slim. Now, Virginia Giuffre, supposedly suicided herself after tweeting, months before tweeting, if I die, it's not by suicide, don't believe it. She was also hit by a bus like 2 months before that.
That's an amazing story. Not to cut you off. I'll get to that in a minute. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to say, it is dangerous to be saying what they're saying. So I can understand why some of them may have that fear, but certainly there is some strength in numbers. And if they, semi-anonymously, obviously it's coming from the survivors, but if they don't put one person's name on it and they say here is the list agreed upon by the survivors, and it's read on the floor of the Congress, I think, it seems like they'd be pretty safe at that point, but because they couldn't be sued individually, I don't think. And of course, if Alan Dershowitz chooses to sue exactly one woman, that's kind of acknowledging guilt. So yeah, maybe there's enough safety there.
Yeah, I mean there could be because that to me sounds like, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to exert some leverage. Hey, we could do this the easy way or the hard way. If you guys vote to release the files and release the list, you're going to have some control over what comes out and what doesn't. They're just going to do that. I think the odds of us getting everything are almost zero. Like whatever we get is going to be curated in some way. Yeah. So maybe this is their way of saying, hey, you know what? You could do this the easy way, or we can make this much harder. That could be potentially what they're going for. But yeah, that Giuffre thing, I mean, we covered that we covered it before she died. And yeah, she was run off the road by a school bus going like 70 miles an hour. What school bus is ever going 70 miles an hour? And
severely hurt, right?
Yes, severely hurt. But here's the thing. The police report said that there was no serious injury at the site of that crash. Very, very weird. Yeah. Very, very strange. So yeah, man. And there was about 3 weeks between when that happened and when she died. And so, that seems incredibly suspicious, so much so that there was a 3-week lag time between the beginning of the incident and the end of it. They just seem to be so brazen.
And the other thing is, her and I'm trying to remember, there's another one where they say, oh, well, they killed themselves because the toxicology shows that, it was pills in their system. Well, there are ways to do that where, unfortunately, it can look like you took pills. I mean, you could sneak a higher dose of something into a pill jar, and then the person takes their evening pills, and it looks like they OD'd on, whatever. So it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, well, she died from pills. Well, that doesn't mean someone didn't have a hand in it.
Sure, of course. And speaking of Virginia Giuffre, her brother was present at the rally. So here is exclusive Epstein survivor Virginia Giuffre's brother has a message for Republicans blocking the Epstein files in every American.
We haven't had an opportunity to really review in detail. There's a lot of, at least upon initial reports, it appears that it's not any new information. So like we've been saying, it's time to release all the documents. And bear in mind, guys, these are your politics. Like the people in these files are your politicians. They are bankers. They are very wealthy and powerful people, and it shouldn't be up to the survivors to have to release that list. It's time for the government to protect the people and stop protecting these rich and powerful men that essentially are trying their very darn best to silence not just us, but the American people.
That's right. And it was a huge event, and we will see what ultimately comes of that. All right. Any more thoughts on the Epstein story, Lee, before we go on to more, real news, before we cover the real news?
The real news, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't see it just fizzling out at this point. I think they've tried, like I mentioned, he's tried every distraction. I think he hoped that the Maxwell testimony, where of course she's hoping for a pardon, would somehow end this thing, and it hasn't. You've seen it disappear for like a few days at a time, when he sends a National Guard to us, one city or another, but it seems to keep bubbling back up. It doesn't seem like Trump's going to be rid of this easily.
No, certainly not. Okay, let's move right on along here. What do we got here over on YouTube? 007 Angelo says, we are in opposite world. I agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Oh my God. Insane. Yep. I know how it feels. Monkey Rotary says Congress used the dollars from AIPAC to wipe the tears from watching Gaza. There you go. Yep. Hillary Hinton says, until they become conscious, they will never rebel. And until they have rebelled, they cannot become conscious. George Orwell. Also, Russ is looking kind of ethnic today. Good one. Monkey Rotary says, I take it you never seen that episode of Justice League when Superman molested some kids then. Thank you, Monkey Rotary. Hamhawk says, congrats on Unredacted. Was Misty on last night? I'm missing full dose of pessimism this week. Feeling better now. Thanks, Hamhawk. No, Misty has a family health issue that she is dealing with, which, we want to wish her very well. Obviously, it's a very tough situation. So we will keep you updated on that, obviously. But yes, she had to cancel yesterday to a family health issue. But thank you, Hamhawk. Professor Brown note, coming on CBS, Bari Weiss cast herself in Snow White in the Seven. I can't say that one on YouTube without getting in a little trouble. Written by Rabbi Shmuley. Thank you, Professor Brown note. Thank you for putting the asterisk on it. Thanks for looking out for us, because that was over on Rumble where you can say whatever you want. But thanks for being mindful. And it is funny. I like that. I like the joke. I do like it. Okay. All right. We're going to move right on along here. Okay. Speaking of Bari Weiss, looks like that is next on the agenda. So this tweet went pretty viral last night, and we covered this a while back. I have to give ourselves a bit of a pat on the back, and really Russ a pat on the back, because when we covered the Skydance Paramount merger, and that was Russ's segment, he warned that really this is a way of giving the Ellison family control over CBS. And he floated the strong possibility at the time that Bari Weiss would end up getting the keys to CBS. So I got to say, got to pat myself on the back a little bit. Got to pat our outlet on the back a little bit. We were ahead of this. But now Dylan Byers has the scoop. Paramount is on the verge of acquiring Bari Weiss as the Free Press and tossing her the keys to CBS News. The deal is on the 1 yard line, I'm told. And he wrote this article here, which was paywalled, and I couldn't even get around it because I guess it's a smaller outlet, so it wasn't even archived. So we're going to use the New York Post, who sort of poached the story off of them, since we could read the whole thing. Paramount in talks to buy Bari Weiss's Free Press for up to $200 million. Give her senior editorial role at CBS News. Paramount is preparing to shell out as much as $200 million for Bari Weiss's buzzy media venture, the Free Press, and hand her the keys to help steer CBS News, in a move that's rattling an already shaken news division still reeling from the $8 billion Skydance Paramount mega merger. Weiss, the former New York Times opinion page editor who launched the Free Press in 2022, is reportedly in line for a senior editorial role at CBS News as part of a deal that would fold her outlet into the new Paramount, according to the Puck newsletter. Paramount declined to comment, but Puck Media reporter Dylan Byers pegged the potential purchase price between $100 and $200 million, with sources saying the talks are in their final stages. So apparently the Free Press generates around $15 million worth of annual revenue from Substack. Now, as I understand it, and I'm no businessman, obviously, if I were, I would not be doing this for a living, believe me. But as I understood, the valuation of a company is about 7 times the annual revenue, right? So if you take in $100,000 a year in revenue, your net worth as a company is around $700,000. All right. So 15 million in Substack revenue, that would put your evaluation maybe 100 million, maybe. But 200 million, that is quite insane.
Well, and if
Quite
you've
insane.
ever looked at the Free Press, it's a glorified. It's a Substack. It's a glorified blog.
Well, it is. That's what it is.
Yeah,
It's a blog.
A glorified blog. Like, imagine paying $200 million for a pro-genocide blog. And let this be a lesson to you kids out there. If you're looking for a real payoff, just be pro-genocide, endorse the bombing and starving of children, and you can end up running CBS News and being paid $100 million.
Exactly. The deal comes on the heels of last month's blockbuster merger between David Ellison's Skydance Media and Paramount Global, which ended decades of Redstone family control and put CBS and CBS News firmly under Ellison's watch. Weiss has carved out a reputation for challenging both the left and the right, building the Free Press into a high-profile, subscriber-driven platform that publishes essays, interviews, and investigative work outside the traditional media lanes. Really, outside the traditional media lanes. Really bucking that pro-Israel.
Exactly. Saying good things about Israel. That's the first.
Yeah, right. Really bucking the pro-Palestine trends among mainstream media. Her potential arrival at CBS News would mark her most prominent mainstream role since leaving the Times. So Glenn Greenwald commented on this. Larry Ellison's son, a family whose overwhelming cause is Israel, bought Paramount and CBS from Sherry Redstone, who has the same cause, and will now give Bari Weiss $100 to $200 million to buy her Israel state media outlet and put her in charge of CBS News' editorial direction. Most of the videos of the Free Press, including Barry's podcast, barely break 10,000 views on YouTube. On a scale of 1 to 10 for online impact, this might be a 3. Whatever the 200 million is for, it's not for the real value of her blog, but for Barry's role in spouting Israel propaganda. Exactly. And you could see, some of the view counts on there quite low on the Free Press. To be fair, Glenn says, at least there is finally some room for Israel supporters in the U.S. to corporate media. In the U.S. corporate media, that at least is progress. So just if you do a simple Google search on Larry Ellison, you see the ties to Israel are pretty deep. Larry Ellison has a long history of significant financial and corporate ties to Israel, expressing strong public support for the country and its military. Ellison and his company Oracle have also been criticized for suppressing pro-Palestinian voices within the organization and through their media platforms. So their financial support and investments, Friends of the IDF. Ellison has been a major donor to Friends of the IDF, contributing millions to the organization. In 2017, he donated $16.6 million to fund well-being facilities for conscripts. Israeli tech investments. He has personally invested in Israeli startups, particularly in the tech sector. For example, in 2025, just now, he led a $23 million funding round for the Israel precision medicine company Imagine AI. Infrastructure funding. In 2007, he pledged $500,000 to fortify a community center in the Israeli city Sderot against rocket attacks. Did I say that right? I don't even know how to say that name.
Sderot.
Yeah, who knows? Who cares? Fuck them. Business involvement through Oracle. Cloud data centers. Under Ellison's leadership, Oracle became the first multinational tech company to offer cloud services in Israel, establishing a $319 million data center in Jerusalem in 2021. Military partnerships, influence on media narratives. You get the picture. This is like one of the richest men in the world. He's kind of like the forgotten oligarch.
Second richest man in the world.
Yeah.
And the numbers you just said make him the largest personal donor, the largest personal funder of the IDF. So the IDF is largely not funded by individuals except for him.
Wow. That's incredible. And now he gets to handpick the editor of CBS News. And now it's Bari Weiss. You talk about a career arc, right? And talk about what sellouts and how shameless these people are. So she writes for the New York Times. She leaves. She makes a big thing about how she was forced out by, closed-minded sort of liberal orthodoxy.
Yeah.
So she founds this Substack, the Free Press, and now she's going to end up right back where she started, even in a more mainstream organ now at CBS News. And like you said, if you run a pro-genocide blog, you can get picked to run CBS News. And this was the very alarming part about this whole merger to begin with, which Rush pointed out. Go ahead.
Yeah, the story for a while just became that Colbert's show was ending because of the merger, and it was really, if you read those articles, it's just described simply as, I don't even think Ellison's name usually comes up. It's just Skydance and Paramount are, canceling, merging and canceling Colbert's show. But the larger story is, ignore the name Skydance. Skydance doesn't fucking mean anything. This is Larry Ellison's son. So this is Larry Ellison and his family buying Paramount, which owns CBS and owns Viacom and owns a dozen other things, buying that up in order to have major control over, one of the, I'd say, top 5 news-making organs in the United States. This is one giant oligarch purchasing information on a mass scale. I mean, all the Paramount movies and everything, you can be sure none of those are going to ever say anything about Gaza or maybe even anything negative about the U.S. empire at all. That's really the story. And instead, the story the mainstream will cover is just Colbert got fired.
Yeah. Yeah, even that Woody Allen expose documentary is going to get nixed now. They're not going to host that on Paramount anymore either. Yeah,
but
no.
Hot Girls of the IDF is coming out soon, though.
Yeah, Hot Girls of the IDF. Right. They'll start a whole TikTok where they can make that, part of the CBS umbrella.
Family,
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes we get criticized on this show for featuring a lot of mainstream articles from, NBC and New York Times and stuff and Washington Post. And I always say a lot of why we tend to feature those articles is to steel man the point, because a lot of tactics of naysayers is to basically attack the source, right?
Yeah.
So if we use our friends run, we are good friends with the people over at antiwar.com, and we do feature them, pretty often. If we only featured them, people would say, well, that's whatever. That's just one of your own propaganda rags that you like so much. So I like to use NBC or to use the New York Times is to point, hey, look, even they're saying this. We're just taking the facts from this and putting our perspective in place of theirs. However, I would have to say, I would really consider boycotting CBS if they actually pull the trigger on this deal, because it's just so vulgar. This is the next escalation of the Telecommunications Act, of the consolidation of media, to have the second richest guy in the world. And as you just said it, and I did not know that, thank you for saying that, the #1 private funder of the IDF, to have him buy up such a chunk of the media space is just so obscene. It's so obscene. It just shows you, in my opinion, the inevitabilities of capitalism, that this is what happens when everything is for sale. Eventually it gets this bad.
Yeah, I call it the gravity of capitalism. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's a slow merging of these things. And the richest people in the world, I mean, let's be honest, even if he spends a few $1 billion on purchasing Paramount, CBS, Viacom, all those things, that is a fraction of his net worth. It's almost nothing to him. So you're inevitably going to get to a place where these people own the information. And Jeff Bezos, of course, bought the Washington Post, and Murdoch bought the Wall Street Journal and already owned Fox News. So Murdoch owns a lot of the information in this country. And we're just seeing this left and right. And, and even in the ones where it wasn't like some billionaire came in and bought it up, you have the New York Times is obviously one of the wealthiest families in the world still, even if they're not one of the top 10 richest. And, they're controlling the informational output of the New York Times. So it really is the oligarchs. It's their show, it's a big club and we ain't in it. It's their show and they're deciding the information we receive. And it's also kind of funny because let's also be clear that it's not like CBS was just prior to this purchase was just a crazy, left-wing Marxist rag. It was already pro-empire. It was already largely pro-Israel, even if it had occasional stories on the starvation in Gaza. It was largely already pro-prison industrial complex, war machine, all this shit, corporate America. It just wasn't quite enough for Larry Ellison. So it's like, the slightly more right-wing oligarchs pulling the thing that was already pro-empire, pro-capitalist even farther. Like, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that is really a microcosm of their entire program. Like if you look at the one big beautiful bill, what that is just the final power grab of these people, where they know they're going to pay a political price for this, assuming we have a free and fair midterm election, which is an asterisk at this point.
Yeah.
But, you're seeing Joni Ernst, the senator from Iowa, just announced she's not seeking re-election. That's because she's afraid to lose. Like they know they're going to pay a political price for this, but they don't care. They don't care because the interests that own both parties control the Democrats enough where they're not going to undo much of this, if any of it. And this is their chance to finally just go pedal to the metal and take every last crumb that they can possibly get their hands on, including in the media space. And that seems to be what this is.
Yeah, I mean, the social safety net was already gutted before now. It already, looked like a goth girl's fishnet stockings. It was already ripped to shreds, but they want to collect those crumbs. They want to take away the final remaining food stamps and the final remaining funds to public schools. And it really is just feasting on the carcass of a collapsing empire. Like that's what we're seeing. And yeah, there might be some political price to pay, but as you point out, it's well worth it for them because they don't, at the end of the day, they care less about being in office than they care about enriching themselves.
Exactly. All right, we got two more segments with the great Lee Camp. By the way, we got a big crowd in here. Check out Lee's show, Unredacted Tonight. You can look that up on YouTube, Unredacted Tonight, or you can go to Means TV, means.tv. That's the website. And what's your coupon code?
My name, Lee.
Coupon code Lee for 20% off a subscription. So make sure you go over there and check that out. Virtuoso says Virginia's brother looks very capable of kicking Michael Tracy's ass. Yes, thank you. To be fair, my 6-year-old looks capable of kicking Michael Tracy's ass. So that's not a
I was blissfully unaware of all this Michael Tracy stuff that was going on.
Stephanie Welch, a list shouldn't be enough. How about evidence? There you go. Jive Talker. Well, I think this is what we were saying. Like, I don't think there's an Excel spreadsheet of names. I think the list is derived from the evidence. Like, from the amount of the evidence, you derive a list of implicated names.
Well, as Whitney Webb has said, it's the real crime. I mean, at least in terms of what you can prove, is all going to be in the money. It's, I don't think we're going to get the videos of, Prince Andrew doing some shit. I think it would all be in the money that you could track down and where it went.
Exactly. All right, we're at 738 likes. I'm going to give you the sound drop here. All right, he did a little for you.
I did a light one.
He didn't do it with the passion that Russ brings to it.
It was not a head bang. It was like a head bop.
Right. It was a shoegaze head bang. A shoegaze meets a head bang. Marjorie Taylor Greene says Jive Talker opposed the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, was free Assange, used force to vote, opposed Ukraine funding, wants the FBI investigated, said the CIA killed Kennedy, opposed bombing Iran, opposed Big Beautiful Bill. Well, she didn't oppose a big, beautiful bill. She talked a big game about that, but she did not end up opposing that. You're right about the other stuff, though. And yes, we have given credit where it's due on those things, for sure. Point taken. Kuznetsky Bassane, thanks to the 1999, says Lee Camp on DD, far out. There you go. We got another fan here for Lee in the chats. Thanks, Kuznetsky Bassane. Appreciate that. Kenman says, I love Lee and subscribe to his channel, but when I see Keaton without Russ, I think of Regis without Kathy Lee, and this makes me sad.
I think I look a lot like Kathy Lee.
Yeah.
I think she is just so much smarter than me, but I think I do a little impression. That's all right.
There you go. Yeah, I was just glad you don't see Kathy Lee without Regis. That would be alarming to me if you described it that way.
Did Regis die?
I think he did die.
I'm going to look in Kathy Lee's direction for the cause.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Freddie X says, rather than making a full list, the Survivor Green should release one name per day until the files are 100% published by the administration. That way, the scumbags won't ever feel safe. There's an idea. 007 Angelo says, I have to give props to Lee, Keaton, and Russ, the only Jews we can respect. Well, thank you.
I don't know. That still sounds a little offensive.
Yeah, it's a little, all right. I can think of a few more, but all right, I'll take the compliment, I guess. If you guys ran Israel, only then when we see true peace in the Middle East. Love and respect, 007 Angelo. What about Blumenthal and Mate? Right?
Or Katie, my buddy Katie Halper. There's
yeah, Katie Halper. There you go. You take 2 more right there. Boom. There you go. So what are you up to? 7 Jews you can respect? There you go.
There's 7 good Jews out there.
At least 7 of us out there. Xander Varkov. Hey, now, Dershowitz said he kept his underwear on. He also said that it should be legal to possess and view a snuff film in the United States. Free speech absolutist, that guy. What can I say? Hummer TLS, thanks for the $50. That's very kind of you. It's very kind of you. Here, I'll get you your Russ knows his way around this better than me. Get you your digital cowbell for the $50 Rumble rant. Appreciate that. Just speculation on my part. I think MTG's stance on Gaza, Epstein, etc., is due to Georgia being a purple state and is posturing for the upcoming election. Could be. Although, like I said, she stuck her neck out on a bunch of things, but it is going to be interesting to see how this plays in the midterms for sure. See, we do that, Lee, when people give us $50 or more. Russ has an actual cowbell.
I gotta, you know, I do live streams every week. I haven't come up with the cowbell. I gotta do that.
Well, you really have to pitch that to Means TV. You have to say you guys need cowbells for the big donors. That's in the,
I'm gonna save up. I'm gonna save up, get my own cowbell.
Yeah. It's ironic. The person, a fan of ours, sent us that cowbell like a few years ago. So we decided to put it to use by ringing a bell for the big donors. And ironically, that same fan quit watching the show. She hates us now because of our stance on Israel-Palestine. She was apparently pro-Israel. We didn't know. It was before October 7th. So we didn't realize that. But then she found out. So she no longer watches, but we still use the cowbell.
Yeah, I've got a few of those, which is, it's always strange to be like, oh, I'm a moral and understanding person on every other issue. But when it comes to Israel, you know, just genocide whoever you want. It's fine.
Yeah. Pretty crazy stuff. All right, we will move right on along here. Okay, this was one that Lee actually pitched to me, and I'm glad you did because I was definitely thinking about doing this one, so I'm glad we can here. So if you remember, Trump had that big Oval Office press conference to prove that he was still alive, even though nothing he said there really, I don't think, warrants an Oval Office press conference, but he gave one anyway, and one of the big announcements that he had was that we killed 11 people on a boat off the coast of Venezuela. So let's take a look.
And when you leave the room, you'll see that we just, over the last few minutes, literally shot out a boat, a drug-carrying boat, a lot of drugs in that boat. And you'll be seeing that, and you'll be reading about that. It just happened moments ago, and our great general, head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who's been so incredible, including what took place in Iran, knocking out potential nuclear power for a long time to come. I think within a month they would have had it if we didn't do what we did. But he gave us a little bit of a briefing, and you'll see. And there's more where that came from. We have a lot of drugs pouring into our country, coming in for a long time. And we just, these came out of Venezuela and coming out very heavily from Venezuela. A lot of things are coming out of Venezuela. So we took it out, and you'll get to see that after this meeting is over.
That's right. So let's take a look. Reuters did a little report on the striking of this boat. Let's take a look at this video right here. Sorry, there we go.
A U.S. military strike on an alleged drug boat from Venezuela killed 11 people Tuesday. That's according to President Donald Trump, who shared video on Truth Social of what appeared to be a drone view of a speedboat exploding and then on fire. This marks the first
I had to freeze frame it since we're not supposed to show deadly explosions on YouTube here.
Known operation since the Trump administration's recent deployment of warships to the southern Caribbean. Trump said the U.S. military had identified the crew as members of Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, and the strike happened in international waters as the boat, which he said was carrying a lot of drugs, was heading to the United States. Washington designated Tren de Aragua as a terrorist organization in February. On Tuesday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio responded to the U.S. strike.
the president was very clear, and that is we destroyed a drug boat that left Venezuela, operated by a designated narco-terrorist organization, which is what these are. And he's been clear that the days of acting with impunity and having an engine shot down or a couple drugs grabbed off a boat, those days are over. Now we are going to wage combat against drug cartels that are flooding American streets and killing Americans.
On Truth Social, Trump also repeated allegations that Tren de Aragua is being controlled by Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, accusations that Caracas denies. It all comes amid a massive buildup.
Not only does Caracas deny it, his own DNI denied it. I meant to put that slide in the slideshow, but we covered this on a previous segment. Tulsi's own DNI said that there is no evidence of a link between that gang and Maduro. So once again, he's going against his own intelligence to, wag the dog, as they say.
Of U.S. warships in the Caribbean, which exceeds the usual deployments in the region. And last month, the United States doubled its reward for information leading to the arrest of Maduro to $50 million, accusing him of links to drug trafficking and criminal groups. The moves have raised alarm in Venezuela that their government might be the real target of the U.S. Navy buildup. Maduro held a rare press conference Tuesday, addressing the show of force on his country's doorstep.
Es una amenaza extravagante, injustificable.
It is an extravagant, unjustifiable, immoral and absolutely criminal threat. Bloody, absolutely criminal.
Absolutamente criminal. Ellos han querido...
They have wanted to move toward what they call maximum pressure, in this case military. And in the face of maximum military pressure, we have declared maximum preparedness for the defense of Venezuela.
Máxima preparación para la defensa de Venezuela.
Venezuelan officials have repeatedly said that Tren de Aragua is no longer active in the country after they dismantled it during a prison raid in 2023.
Yeah, and I just went and I searched that. I'll screen share this just so you don't have to take my word for it. U.S. intelligence memo says Venezuelan government does not control Tren de Aragua gang, and that was dated May of this year. That wasn't Joe Biden's ODNI. That was Donald Trump's ODNI, Tulsi Gabbard's ODNI, saying no link between the gang and the government. So I just wanted to produce that receipt for you there so you didn't have to take my word for it. But here's Donald Trump asking a question. Hey, why were the 11 men on that boat killed instead of taken into custody? Let's hear what he has to say.
Sense of what the U.S. policy or what you're trying to achieve with the aircraft carriers, or the boats, I should say, in near Venezuela, and also the boat that you mentioned yesterday where 11 people were killed. What was found on that boat, and why were the men killed instead of taken into
On the boat, you had massive amounts of drugs. We have tapes of them speaking. It was massive amounts of drugs coming into our country to kill a lot of people. And everybody fully understands that. In fact, you see it. You see the bags of drugs all over the boat. And they were hit, obviously. They won't be doing it again. And I think a lot of other people won't be doing it again when they watch that tape. They're going to say, let's not do this. We have to protect our country, and we're going to. Venezuela's been a very bad actor. They've been, as you know, they've been sending millions of people into our country, many of them Tren de Aragua, some of the worst gangs, some of the worst people anywhere in the world in terms of gangs. And we had some in Washington, D.C. We took care of them very quickly, but they're out of here. They've gone. But Venezuela's been very bad, both in terms of drugs and sending some of the worst criminals anywhere in the world into our country. They emptied out, you don't know this, but they emptied out their prisons in Venezuela, and they emptied them out into the United States of America. And that's part of the problem we have. We're getting them out. We're getting them out rapidly.
I believe the question was, why did you kill them instead of bring them into custody? You notice, got off of that one pretty quick. So here's my favorite. This is my favorite anchor. This is the chin man, I call him. This is the guy, this is a DEI hire of chins, this guy. That's why he is sitting in that chair. Rand Paul on Trump striking a Venezuelan boat and killing 11 people. So here's another thorn in Trump's side from within his own party, raising some constitutional questions about this action.
Boat, which... You know, I personally think that's a brilliant deterrent to this kind of activity. Is that how you see it?
You know, I guess...
I personally just want to stick my tongue in Trump's ass now. What about you? What do you,
yeah,
sign that? Yeah. What do you think?
Hard to have any sympathy for drug dealers, trying to import product into our country. But at the same time, I guess you might ask the question, where does it end? Are we the world's policemen, the international policemen? Are we going to be blowing people up off the coast all around the world trying to interdict? Really, I'm not sure we have the finances to be the world's policemen. So on the face of it, sounds good. Nobody's going to have any kind of lost love for a bunch of drugs going down in the ocean and killing some gang members. But at the same time, really, where does it end? And is it really the constitutional duty of our government to be, policing international drug trade everywhere around the world?
Good point. So Max Blumenthal, or as he's known around here, Good Jew number 4, as with Trump's bombing of Iran, his show of force and possible military assault on Venezuela, a country that poses no threat to the U.S., is taking place with no congressional input or approval and next to no public debate. It is pure gangsterism. And like the U.S. bombing of Iran, Trump has commandeered the U.S. military to carry out the agenda of a fanatical fifth column that wields outsized influence in Washington and dictates his foreign policy. Exactly. And Max's wife, Anya, who wrote a book about this, who we interviewed her about this book probably about a year ago at this point, points out some reporting from her book. Since Marco Rubio is pushing for war in the Western Hemisphere based on evidence-free claims the U.S. is targeting narco traffickers, let's recall that his own brother-in-law was a leading cocaine cowboy in the 1980s Miami. Rubio lived in the home at the center of the drug ring. And she's referring to here, my book, Corporate Coup, Venezuela and the End of U.S. Empire, details the shady character of Trump's pick for Secretary of State. This was tweeted out in November of 2024, Marco Rubio. Did you know he fabricated his family history and once lived in one of Miami's most notorious cocaine dens, which his brother-in-law operated as a drug lord? My, oh my. This was a funny response. Talk about a look back in time for posterity. Oof. Dave Smith, Candace Owens, and Alex Jones, you guys are going to have your hands full if you're going to keep this administration honest, anti-war, and for the people. Wow. Wow. Well, look back at that tweet and see how all of that went. So, yeah, Lee, you did a segment on this about, what was it, about a week ago? Not the bombing of the boat, but obviously the warmongering about Venezuela with the positioning of the troops. So go ahead.
Yeah, he hadn't killed the people in the boat yet. But all of this really is lies. It's just mountains of lies. I mean, sometimes there's so many lies in one sentence from these terrorists that it's tough to break it all apart. But so you've got him murdering these people in this boat. First of all, it's, a war crime and illegal and all of those things to just murder people without any charges, without any due process. You're just blowing up boats. Secondly, a huge amount of drugs. That was clearly a small boat. How much drugs could it have had on there? Right. Third, you have the gang that was it De Aragua that was even at its height was apparently a little regional gang in Venezuela and did not have much power at all. And as you said, even his own intelligence says is not connected to Maduro. None of this is connected to Maduro. And if you go back just a few years, Chavez and Maduro have been accused of being connected to Colombian guerrillas, Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Cartel of the Suns, which is the one they're trying to revamp now, but actually they started that accusation back in 2015. The Cartel of the Suns is, as far as I can tell, not even a real thing. They just made it up because they thought it would sound scary and it would connect. The idea is the Suns is the generals in Venezuela have suns on their emblems. So you could say, so they could act like the Venezuelan military is a big part of this drug cartel. But even at its peak, most of the drugs are not coming, almost none of the drugs are coming from Venezuela. They're coming from Colombia. And at its peak, something like 7% of Colombians' drugs were passing through Venezuelan territory. And now it's down to 5% are passing through Venezuelan territory. So almost all of this is these drugs actually coming from Colombia. Now to get to even a deeper layer, the U.S. government has never really cared about drugs. Do they really give a shit if you're high or not? No.
Not only have we not cared, we brought them in.
We brought them in some of the time. The CIA used them to destroy many black communities. But yeah, you've got God, Eichen, what's his name? Jesus Christ. Anyway, Nixon's aide, I lost his name, who said in the 90s, admitted in the 90s, that the drug war was amped up under Nixon in order to destroy black communities and activist communities. And he legitimately said, we couldn't make it illegal to be black, but we could make drugs so highly illegal that we could rip apart black communities, which is what they've done. And so the idea that, oh my God, these horrible drugs. Yeah, well, the opioid epidemic killed hundreds of thousands for decades, and the U.S. did nothing about it because it wasn't useful for U.S. propaganda to go after certain countries. So who gives a shit? It was connected to corporate America. So so clearly they don't care about drugs. And then to get to one more level of what the fuck is going on here, why is it, you got to ask yourself, that the U.S. despises Venezuela even more than almost every other I guess every other Latin American country.
Oh, well, yeah.
And more than other socialist countries. Like, if it's just about Venezuela has socialism and we fucking hate that, then, but there are other socialist countries that the U.S. is not quite as furious with, like Cuba. We do hate Cuba, but not as much. And so you really want to get to the root of why we've been trying to coup Venezuela for decades. We literally did coup Chavez for like 2 days in 2004, and it didn't last because the people rose up and demanded him back in power. And you get to the fact that Venezuela has more oil under its ground than any other country on earth. More than Saudi Arabia, more than Iraq, more than any of them. And if Venezuela were both, extracting that oil and pumping it out, not only would they become an incredibly rich socialist country, but most of that oil would be sold outside of the petrodollar. It's not that the U.S. needs that oil. They just want to make sure that oil does not enter the market outside of the dollar, because once the petrodollar collapses, the U.S. dollar collapses in general, and it just desecrates, destroys the U.S. power around the world. Without that much, it would destroy our money. And so we don't necessarily need the oil. We just need to make sure that oil doesn't get pumped outside of petrodollars. And we've succeeded, because Venezuela almost can't pump any of their oil because of U.S. sanctions, which is it's just a war via economic means, which does kill, according to Lancet Medical Journal, 500,000 people a year are killed with our sanctions. So.
Well, yeah, obviously, what the point about Cuba is a great one. Yes, we hate Cuba, but, you can grow tobacco and coffee beans, in lots of other places, right? Even Bolivia with the lithium, which Elon made that, famous tweet about how we'll coup whoever we want for the lithium. And they tried to overturn that election, and did so actually temporarily there a few years back.
For a year, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was comical. They put in who was the woman there? I remember that. So whatever spokesperson for the new Bolivian government, like this blonde white woman.
But and she came into the Capitol with a giant Bible. Held the giant Bible. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's obviously all about the oil. Trump has said so himself. He has said that part out loud.
Bolton said in a Fox News interview, he said, if we can get our hands on that oil. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Oh, well, that's so obviously what it is. I mean, there's just no question about it. And now they're talking about the possibility of pursuing regime change in Venezuela as if that hasn't been their goal all along. I mean, it's just laughable. And this is just another act of war by the peace president. It's just really it's so incredibly hostile. Such an incredibly hostile act. And now it's funny. Russ played. Last time we covered Venezuela, they always need some excuse to do regime change for resources, whether it's terrorism or, in this case, drugs, right? In this case, that is the new thing. They're bringing deadly drugs into the country, and so we have to blow them out of the water. And that is just in service of a regime change operation, which is clearly in motion. They tried to do this in Trump's first term. They're going to try and do it now.
Remember the Bay of Piglets?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
When they sent like 60 mercenaries, last Trump regime, 60 mercenaries at Venezuela with guns, and they were like stopped by a group of fishermen. I mean, it did not last long, and it was called the Bay of Piglets.
All right, Schuendal says intellectual dark web, more like the out in the open evil and stupid web. Thank you for that. Sasser78 says absolutely love Lee Camp. Hope Russ is okay. Thank you. Yeah, Russ is fine. Russ is.
I whacked him. I killed Russ.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Skyzar, thanks for the $5. And considering his past, you'd guess Marco Rubio knows a little about drug boats, right? Yep, exactly. Put that in the piece for you there. The third man, 8, thanks for the $5, says Kathy Lee Gifford's maiden name is Epstein. Insert own joke here. You cannot make this up. Cancer sucks. You guys rock. Seriously. Well, thank you for that very much. All right, Lee, you got time for one more?
Yeah, I can do 10, 15 more minutes.
Okay, cool. That is about what this will take. So thank you for being with us today. All right, folks, we're going to do our final segment of the day here. We did a segment on the new film, The Voice of Hind Rajab, when news broke out of the Venice Film Festival that, some high-profile celebrities, Brad Pitt, Rooney Mara, and Joaquin Phoenix, had signed on as executive producers to put their name and clout behind this film. And it premiered at the Venice Film Festival between then and now. The Voice of Hind Rajab stuns Venice with its longest standing ovation of 22 minutes amid tears and Free Palestine chants. The Voice of Hind Rajab premiere at the Venice Film Festival proved to be a hugely emotional event with very few dry eyes in the Sala Grande. One of the most talked about films going into the festival, the powerful and gut-wrenching drama from Tunisian director Kauthar Ben Hania, tells the true story of 5-year-old Palestinian girl Hind Rajab, who was killed in the early stages of the war in Gaza. The feature received a huge 22-minute standing ovation, the longest of the festival so far. As the ovation surpassed 20 minutes, and in a clear effort to get the room to disperse, the lights were dimmed in the theater. The clapping continued. While fleeing with her family from Gaza City in January 2024, the car Rajab was traveling in was shelled, killing her uncle, aunt, and 3 cousins. She was left stranded for hours in the vehicle while on the phone to the Palestinian Red Cross Society as paramedics attempted to rescue her. When she was eventually reached, both Rajab and the paramedics were found dead, with media investigations concluding that an Israeli tank had likely fired 335 rounds into the car. The phone recording of Rajab's voice is used in the film. So it's not a documentary per se, it's a docudrama using the original source material. So it blends a sort of reenactment with real life audio footage. So we're going to play a few minutes of this. A new audio recording of the child Hind documents the moments of horror she experienced while trapped alone amidst the Israeli tanks and the dead bodies of her relatives who were killed by Israeli soldiers around her. Hind was also killed alone as the occupation first bombed the ambulance that was headed to rescue her just a few meters away from her, resulting in the killing of the PRCS paramedics. Okay, so we're going to play this audio. There's nothing graphic or gory here, but I do have to warn you, this is as difficult to take as just about any piece of video or sound that we've ever played. Here is actual conversation between Hind Rajab and the operator she is speaking to on the phone. This is about 3 minutes. And the subtitles are a little small. I apologize, but you can read them there.
وهم هلا معك بالسيارة؟
There's the car.
انت هلا وين متخبي هلا؟ وين انت هلا محمية؟ بالسيارة. جوا السيارة انت صح؟ مش برا السيارة. صح. طيب خليكي يا عمري بالسيارة. أنا رح أتمني فاتح الخط معاكي، أتمني أحكي معك، ما بدي أسكر التليفون، تمام؟ الدبابة جنبية. الدبابة وين؟ جنبية. الدبابة جنبكم؟ ما عم تتحرك ولا واقف؟ نزل حدا منها؟ هي بتتحرك. تتحرك؟ طيب هي بتتحرك جنب السيارة ولا هي جاي من ورا السيارة أو من قدام السيارة؟ من قدام السيارة. هي جاية عليكي من قدام السيارة الدبابة؟ قريب كتير؟ كتير. وعم تمشي؟ طيب ما بدنا نخاف. خليكي معي. أنا معك يا عمري. أنا معك. أنا معك ليجي حدا ياخدك، ما بدي أسيبك لحالك. لما يجي حدا بتفصل طيب؟ إيه؟ لما يجي حدا يكون بتفصلي. لا أنا بدي أتمني معاكي لأطمن إنه حدا هلال أو حدا جاي ياخدك. بديش أفصل حتى أنت إذا أجا لا سمح الله الجيش ما تفصلي، خلي الخط مفتوح، ما بدنا نفصل، أنا معاكي. إيش يا عمري؟ خليكي معي يا حبيبتي يا عمري، والله معك. هيني أنا مش تاركك، بحكي معاكي، ما بدي أصلا أتركك. أكثر من ساعة. إيه؟ أكثر من ساعة. أنا بكون موجودة حتى ينيلة. إيش؟ أنت عيلة فقط. حبيبتي والله لو بإيدي لأذيكي. نحكي يا الله. يا رب تحمينا. يا رب تحمينا.
Yeah, so that is just absolutely devastating. Just absolutely crushing to listen to that. And you know, this film centers around that call. So in the movie, you actually hear that actual footage, and then I suppose the concept is they reenact the other side of the call, but they use a lot of that audio in the movie, and it's just absolutely gutting to hear that. So as you can imagine, this must be just an extraordinarily powerful piece of work. And so here's some footage from the ovation. There's Joaquin Phoenix and Rooney Mara, who added their names to the movie. And here you have the Palestinian flag waved at the, ovation during the applause with the Free Palestine chants. And here's someone from in the screening. The Voice of Hind Rajab is not just a film. It's a haunting testament to a 6-year-old's final cries, the helplessness of those who tried to save her, and the silence of a world that didn't. Undoubtedly, the most important art piece of the year 2025, maybe even the decade. And here is Palestinian actress Shaja Kalani delivering a powerful message at the press conference. This was during a panel for the film.
Ask, isn't it enough? Enough of the mass killing, the starvation, the dehumanization, the destruction, the ongoing occupation. The Voice of Hind Rajab does not need our defense. This film is not an opinion or a fantasy. It is anchored in truth. Hind's story carries the weight of an entire people. Her voice is one amongst tens of thousands of children that were killed in Gaza in the last 2 years alone. It is the voice of every daughter and every son, with the right to live, to dream, to exist in dignity, yet all of it was stolen in front of unblinking eyes. And these are only the voices we know. Behind every number is a story that never got to be told. Hind's story is about a child crying out, "Save me." And the real question is, How have we let a child beg for life? No one can live in peace while even one child is forced to plead for survival. Let Hind Rajab's voice echo around the world. Let it remind you of the silence that has been built around Gaza. Let it name the genocide that silence protects. And let it pierce the word enough. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. For justice, for the sake of humanity, for the future of every child. Enough.
So obviously, just extraordinarily powerful. To hear that audio is just absolutely crushing, and to see the response of this film. We did a full segment about the Venice Film Festival. It really was taken over by pro-Palestine sentiment, protesters, marchers, largely because the fact that this film is there. And you do want to shout out obviously the filmmakers, and also the fact that you got people like Joaquin Phoenix and Brad Pitt putting their name on it does make a big difference, because it is going to help get it out there. The movie No Other Land won the fucking Oscar, and it still couldn't get any distribution. And so those celebrity endorsements do go a long way towards getting the project out there in front of as many people as possible. And I think this is going to be a trend now. I hope it is. It must be. It better be that all of these films, that every year there should be stories being told about this, both in the narrative realm and the documentary realm. And in this case, it's sort of a fusion of both. So we're going to have to track the progress and the release schedule of this film, and we'll have a lot more to say about it when eventually, obviously, we'll get to see it, and we'll try and support in any way we can. But yeah, the power of these stories being told is, I think, undeniable, and look forward to seeing more from this. Lee, any thoughts of anything we just saw?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting that one child or one child's story can have as much impact as 100,000, and it's just, unfortunately, the way our systems work, the way our information works. You'd love for it to not necessarily be that way, that it's like, oh, now we care because we hear this child and that makes us sad. But unfortunately, it's like humans haven't evolved enough to understand the scope of death that isn't in front of them, that's overseas. And unfortunately, it's getting even worse now that a lot of the killing is done by pushing a button on a drone bomb.
Right.
A lot of these soldiers and things don't feel the death that they're creating as they're told to do these things. But so you do need these kind of individual stories to grab people. This one has, this is probably one of 5 Palestinian names that your average American might know, is Hind Rajab. So it is powerful in that way, and I'm glad it's getting a big reception. No Other Land won the Oscar, and like you said, still couldn't get distribution. But on top of that, when one of the filmmakers got back to the West Bank, I think it was he was black bagged by Israel and put in their prisons and disappeared for a while. I believe he's free now, but
one of the others was killed. Not one of the directors, but one of the people who was instrumental to making that film was recently killed.
Yeah, and when the other one was missing, Israel had kidnapped him, because everyone needs to remember Israel has at least 10,000, maybe more like 13,000 hostages, Palestinian hostages at all times, that don't seem to get talked about as much as other hostages. But during that time when he was missing, the Academy, even though this thing had won an Oscar, wouldn't put out a statement about, hey, maybe don't black bag our filmmakers, and some filmmakers, filmmakers and actors and things were calling attention to the Academy to fucking put out a public statement. One of them was my brother, who was nominated for an Oscar for an animated film, and ultimately they finally said something about this, filmmaker that had been disappeared. It was how bad's it got to get for you to be willing to just put out a fucking tweet? It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. I mean, and this is what is also kind of striking about seeing these films, being received so well, both on the festival circuit and obviously at the Oscars, is that, I mean, Hollywood, is, first of all, just in terms of their orientation, very pro-Israel as a rule. And a lot of show business people who are not pro-Israel or who, have a dissenting view are too cowardly to make those views known because of fear of retribution within the industry. And so, unfortunately, it takes a lot to get moments like that to happen. And I think it is indicative of a certain sea change that you're starting to see that. And it's imperative that we see it more and more, year after year after year, because the power is undeniable. So Marshall Schaefer says, review to come, but I have never witnessed sustained applause at a Venice press conference, at a Venice press screening, like I did at the Voice of Hind Rajab this morning. I would be shocked if it does not deservedly win the Golden Lion or another major prize at Venice Film Festival. That's another thing, now with the advent of streaming and the sort of broader distribution of films and stuff, these festivals are not what they used to be in terms of like carrying the kind of weight that they did within the industry like 20 years ago, where you basically had to get into one of these festivals in order to get the movie seen. But Venice is one of a small handful of festivals that still seems to matter, like Cannes, like Sundance, right? And so, if this does win that award, I think it will get it out there more. And Lee, you're a stand-up comic, you're an artist, art is important in communicating these stories. You can communicate points through art that sometimes you can't through politics to certain people, because certain people don't want to sit and watch a presidential debate, but they'll go watch a movie and they'll be moved in that way.
Yeah. Very true.
All righty. Well, we are going to let you go, Lee. Thank you so much for sticking with us today. Really appreciate you helping us out on the show here. Go to Unredacted Tonight on YouTube. Isn't there a website too for Unredacted Tonight? Unredactedtonight.com? Something like that?
That does exist, but it's just kind of mainly a landing page, sends you to the YouTube page. But leecamp.com is my official site. And if you go to leecamp.com/unredacted, you'll be taken to the YouTube playlist for all the unredacted episodes. And I also live stream 3 days a week at that same YouTube channel.
Okay, awesome. So Unredacted Tonight, look that up on YouTube. You could also subscribe on Means TV, means.tv, using the coupon code Lee. For what does that get you? 20% off over there?
That's right. Yeah.
All right. Wonderful. Well, Lee Camp, pleasure. Thank you so much for helping me out this afternoon. Really appreciate it. Great to see you again.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to do it. And keep up the fight.
All righty. Thank you, sir. Have a great one. Bye-bye. Lee Camp, everybody. Round of applause in the chat for Lee. Thanks, everybody, for being here with us. As well, we still got some super chats and some Rumble rants to read and some housekeeping to take care of, but I didn't want to make Lee sit through all that. So I turned him loose. But yeah, it was great. Great to see Lee Camp once again. Thanks for guest hosting the show today with me. Where did my thing go? What did I do here? All right, let me see if I got this here. Sorry, folks. I thought I had that saved. I did have it saved. It's fucking with me for some reason. Okay, that is now loaded and perfect. All right, we'll take some Rumble rants and some super chats before we close the lights on the stream here. Smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, everybody. Let's see here. AOB says it's anti-Semitic not to be able to shoot a 6-year-old child 250 times. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I just saw that. That was the first time I saw that audio. That broke me the first time I watched it. You're getting my. I watched it a couple times, so you're getting my third reaction here watching it live. But was really, really brutal to take, just to hear the voice of a young kid. Could have been my kid. Could have been any of our kids. Just absolutely crushing. Let's see here. Furrows Queen says that's Keaton's line to Russell. You're muted. Yeah, exactly. Thanks to Lee for bailing me out on that. I had to mute because my little guy, my 1-year-old is walking now. So my big kids are at school, but the 1-year-old is walking. So sometimes he gets away from mom. If he gets 10 steps ahead of her, sometimes he can rush the door and start trying to open it. And it's like a glass door, so it's kind of like a French door. So it's like, makes some noise, starts banging really loud. So that's why I had to mute there. Thanks, Furrows Queen. Appreciate that. All right, folks. One of our dissident sponsors is called The Grifter's Bible, and it's a mind-bending novel by El Shabooms. It's now a free weekly series on YouTube with a soundtrack by monumental sonic architecture. So follow the First Electric Church of Jesus Christ as they combine the bleeding edge of black patents and neuroscience with the state-of-the-art in Michigas to beat the Great Recession. They sell visions of God to the huddled masses of Deep Ellum, Texas, and the money pours in until the local competition, the police, and the U.S. Navy decide to put a stop to it. There's ass whoopings, car chases, and a showdown at high noon on Good Friday in Dodge City. It's sci-fi noir. It's a picaresque thriller, and it's a Western from 10 minutes in the future. It's The Grifter's Bible, a film series by El Shabooms with a soundtrack by monumental sonic architecture. A new episode is posted every Monday at youtube.com/El Shaboom. So /@El Shabooms, that's the link there. New episode drops every Monday. Please do check that out and support our dissident sponsors and artistic creators. Eric Rousseau says, will they be developing a vax to cure my anti-Semitism? Yeah. It's the vax that they're going to develop for that. It won't stop you from being anti-Semitic. It won't stop you from transmitting your anti-Semitism, but it'll weaken the anti-Semitism. It'll make it less symptomatic. So you won't write as many Rumble rants about it. That's all. That is the effect that will have. All right, let's do one more order of business here, then we'll read the rest of our stuff here. I do want to, of course, shout out our supporters, our members who help make this show possible. So let me do that right now here. I'm just trying to get this done. Beautiful. All right, there you go. See, you're seeing it happen now. See, we were able to cover up some of that procedural stuff with Russ here because I could do that while Russ is on a tear. But now I got to do it all by my lonesome. So, hey, if you like what we do here, please consider helping us do more of it by becoming a member at dudissidents.com/Patreon, /Substack, or /Locals. Membership starts at $5 a month across all those platforms, and you get all kinds of perks, including your name up in lights here on the show scroll. You also get call-in access to all of our Q&As, which happen every Sunday night over on Rumble after the conclusion of the main show. You also get a film club every month, which this month you're going to get 2 because we had to reschedule August Film Club because we had to reschedule almost our entire shoot in St. Louis. It was supposed to be done the weekend of the 23rd into the week of the 24th. Instead, it got pushed back an entire week, so it threw our schedule off. So you get double the film club stream this month, as well as, of course, a post-game show where we do an extended show once a month for members only and take your calls afterwards. So you get a whole lot, plus ad-free live stream replays. So every stream that we do here, we post the ad-free version of that stream exclusively for members the day after it airs. So in case you miss a show and you don't want to watch it back with the ad interruptions that come with the main platforms, you get an ad-free version of the show, and it helps us out tremendously. It also provides enough backbone and support where we can do projects like the Uhuru documentary. We could not do that unless we had steady support from consistent membership. So it helps us out tremendously. If you want to go and check that out, dudissidents.com /Patreon, Substack, or Locals. Those are the custom links that Jake made up. You can also go to patreon.com /DuDissidents if that's easier to remember, whatever floats your boat in that way. Thank you all very much for your support. Excuse me. Albukid says, Ellison and his cronies plan on being the winners that write the history on Gaza. That's right. It's why Israelis and IOF aren't worried about their legacy or prosecution. Being a trusted source boosts algorithms. Thank you, Albukid. Appreciate that very much. 007 Angelo says, add Norm Finkelstein to that. 7. That makes 8. A nice round number. I'm okay with that. 8 just have to decide who's going to be Prime Minister of Israel. Good call, 007. Thank you very much. Excuse me. Throat's drying out a little bit. That's what happens when you quarterback 7 segments all on your own. We're used to doing 3 or 4 each, splitting the load with Russ. But I have done a lot of yapping over these past 2 hours and change with only one glass of water. So with that, I will bid you all farewell. Thank you all very much for being here today. Appreciate all the YouTubers, all of the Rumblers, all the mods for keeping the peace in the chat. I will be back on Sunday with Russell Dobular, who will be joining us back in New York City. So he will be leaving St. Louis tomorrow and back in New York at the home studio set up for Sunday night's show. Please do smash that like button on the way out. Let's see if we can get to 1,000 likes before we wrap the stream on YouTube. Smash the like button over on Rumble. Please subscribe on the YouTube channel. Follow us on the Rumble channel. Andy Gardner got a last-minute super chat in here. Rest in power, Russ. Need a presser to confirm. Yeah, exactly. Boy. We want to thank the mods. Like I said, thank the YouTubers and the Rumblers. Thanks once again to Lee Camp for filling in. He did a great job. It was great to talk to him once again. I'm sure we'll have him on again soon. And we appreciate you all for spending your Thursday afternoon with us. Until we see you Sunday night, 7 p.m., be safe and be well. Courage. Ding.
Please clap.